Hi, I'm Steve Kep, co-founder of From Day One, our forum on corporate values. Welcome to today's webinar. We're excited about today's topic, which is about hiring for potential. Before we get started, I want to share something special we have for today's attendees. One of our monthly virtual conferences is coming up on Wednesday, November 17th, and it's titled Building a Skilled Team, How Upskilling, Coaching, and Recognition Can Help. It's going to be particularly valuable for employers who are looking for creative ways to attract top talent and keep them engaged. Thanks to our partners and today's sponsor, we have some complimentary VIP tickets available for those who joined today's webinar. That would be you. I'm putting a link in the chat right now. I think you'll want to take advantage of this one. The regular price for our conference tickets is $149, and this link will give you a free VIP ticket for the whole day's activities. Hope to see you there. Today, we'll be exploring the topic, hiring for potential in an era of digital disruption. In an economy where the technical skills needed for tomorrow will be different from today's, employers can hire with more foundational qualities in mind. The ability to adapt, to solve problems, and pursue continuous learning. We'll be exploring questions like, what can companies do to recruit for these aspects and make sure your new hires are valued and promoted within the organization as well? How does this philosophy help prepare a company to meet its future staffing needs? Our sponsor today is Draup. I'll tell you a bit about them. Draup is an AI-driven reskilling and talent intelligence platform that provides in-depth insights into the talent ecosystem. As enterprises are transforming at a rapid pace, Draup is empowering HR teams with a comprehensive, integrated view of the global talent ecosystem, including evolving roles and skills to assist in employers' talent initiatives. Now, a few quick logistical items. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on demand soon after the event. So you can look out for an email in about 24 hours with the link. That email will also have info on how you can get professional development credits for this session from the Society of Human Resource Management. And look for a written account of the conversation on our website at fromday1.co. And an important point, about 45 minutes into our hour-long conversation, we'll be taking questions from the audience. You can send in your questions at any time during the program using the Q&A button on the bottom of your screen. Now I'd like to introduce our moderator, Emily McCrary-Ruiz-Esparza. Emily is a writer, editor, and content strategist with almost a decade of experience in tech and online publications. Current and former clients of hers include business publications, clothing brands, graphic designers, independent novelists, and software as a service companies. Okay, Emily, please introduce our speaker for the day and take it away.
Thank you, Steve. Very happy to be here, and thank you everybody who's watching today. I want to go ahead and get started because, like Steve said, we will be taking questions at 15 till. So let's jump right in. Vijay, if you could start by introducing yourself and giving us some background, the origin story of Draup, and exactly how your company fits into the talent and recruiting ecosystem.
Thank you, Emily. Honored to be here. I deeply admire the books that are in your background. I understand you're a phenomenal reader. Draup is, my name is Vijay Swaminathan. I'm the CEO of Draup. I'm really privileged to be here. What we are trying to do at Draup is provide deeper insights through a very large raw data that we are calling for inference. So our raw data set is not just resumes, it's not, is a combination of resume databases, company level information, startup databases, and reskilling patterns, that proprietary algorithms driving the reskilling patterns. And it is an extensive data system. But at the end of the day, I always believe that data is just data if you can't translate in insight. So that's where contextualization and drawing deeper meaning from the data, that's where we really help our clients. And we play in the areas of Steve mentioned, reskilling and talent intelligence, and really delighted to be here.
Thank you. So for those who have not encountered Draup before, could you talk about, you mentioned how you fit in and that you contextualize data. what are some of the most important pieces of context that you can offer people on the call today? So what are maybe the more meaningful challenges that you're seeing in talent acquisition, recruiting, and then maybe retention a little bit too?
Absolutely. I think that's a great opening question. And I'm going to answer that not just from the context of Draup as a platform, but overall recruitment is facing phenomenal challenges. And I think we all know that. I always say, if you see a recruiter, go give them a hug, because they are kind of true warriors these days. You have, from a digital talent supply demand gap standpoint, we are at about 4.1 million people gap. That means the supply is a lot lower than the demand. And that is expected to grow to 8.2 million through our forecasting analysis in the next 3 to 4 years. So if recruitment is tough now, imagine how it's going to be 3 to 4 years. So our viewpoint is, you have to understand the market not in terms of demand supply standpoint alone. It's not just there is 200 software developers in Indianapolis who have just relocated, right? So it is not just an absolute number. We have to go deeper into what type of enterprises they are working on, what type of, whether they are belonging to larger enterprises, whether they are startups, whether what type of transitions have people shown. There is a huge convergence between IT and software. Now, how can we, to give a quick example, like 5-6 years ago, an application developer developed an application for 50 people. Now they are developing in cloud across, the elasticity is high. So there is a convergence of stack that is happening, which we are working with recruiters to provide deeper understanding of the stack. Say for example, not just on the technical digital stack, even on the frontline worker. Today's call center is more a psychological counseling agent, because they are the problem that they are solving is more deeper, more the one that require advocacy, right? So how do we actually provide them the right psychological skills, and then maybe they can actually become a sales executive down the road. Like, we have to imagine all these possibilities, because they're taking care of your top difficult customers and serving them really well. If there is anyone who can do a sale, it would be a call center agent in this model, if they do that consistently over 3 to 4 years. So these connections of different job families, truly enabling a human force. It's not just a workforce, it is truly enabling a human force. And we have to emphasize that, because in this day of digital, where people think that, digital, they can do everything, human force is still the most deciding factor for why a company can dominate their peers, right? And we cannot forget that. There is a lot of studies that we assembled, if you look at the studies that were coming out from a 2005-2006 timeframe, it was said that the call center agents would be completely automated. 50% of the contact center interactions is still through phone. And we said that the truck drivers would be all gone. It would all be automated trucks. We actually have a 1.1 million truck driver shortage. We said maintenance technicians, material handling, warehouse, all this will be replaced by robots. We have a acute shortage of those. We need at least 10 million people of that talent in the next 10 years. So we have, in many ways, we are in this place because, not just because the forecast was wrong, but because it takes a lot of effort to completely transform into this fully automated world. And there is a concept called AGI, which is the artificial general intelligence, which is attempting to do what the humans do. But we are not there. And I think it will take another 20, 30 years to be there. So in the meantime, human force have to be nurtured, human force have to be provided a career, and that's where we play. How do we transform recruiters into superstars and super intelligent. They're already super intelligent. Enable them with data, right? So and scenarios. Can we, if they are hiring a material handler, can we give them a futuristic career path? Like today's material handler is tomorrow's supply chain consultants, and day after tomorrow they're going to do quality assurance check across the globe, increasing the supply chain channel. So can we present this career in a crisp pitch that they can take it to the audience, to their target, and enable them? So that's kind of the area that we work on within recruitment and workforce planning. So
it sounds like you're seeing recruiters with kind of a communication problem, maybe also a knowledge gap too. So not only are they not able so far or largely to communicate potential career path, do you think it's, I don't have the skills to do that, therefore I'm lacking some sort of communication skill? Or is it, I lack the knowledge to actually convey that on behalf of the company? Maybe the company doesn't know, maybe I don't understand what the, the operations strategist is going to do in 10 years. Could you talk more about that?
Right. Recruiters are phenomenal communicators. Recruiters are nurturers. Not only that, they also offer a kind of a virtual crying shoulder if you're rejected, right? Even for rejected candidates, right? So they are phenomenal that way. What we are trying to do is provide relevant data sets and stories so that they can be super efficient. So we don't want to complicate their life too much by providing irrelevant data. So we contextualize that. So when we look at a location, we very easily say, this is the talent, this is the characteristics of the talent, this is where they are working, this is the experience, this is what you can expect to pay. And very quickly say that there was a case study where we worked with a large telecom company, and the budget that the recruiter was given was only giving access to about 50% of the talent. Like very easily we can tell that through our platform, right? So if you can't expect the recruiter to do magic if your budget is so low in a market where it is dramatically changing. The budgets are set based on annual surveys, but base pay and other incentives are changing on a daily basis. So we come up with a big data approach of studying compensation to say, hey, what is the trend as of now? What are companies paying? What is the potential of that a software developer or whichever job role can earn? And the game is fundamentally disrupted post-pandemic. Three things have happened. One is enterprises have made a ton of money. So in majority of them are willing to pay whatever it takes for the right talent, right? The other aspect that has happened is, private equity, startup, venture capitalist funds have just gone like really crazy. They're putting money everywhere. As a result, the traditional enterprises, so you have the tech enterprises, you have the VCs, you have the private equities, the traditional enterprises are a little slow to get caught up on these trends in terms of what it takes to get the right talent, what it takes to retain the right talent. And that is where we are unpacking the data to say, hey, you might have not thought this small company with 20 people have the money to attract the top AI scientist or research scientist or software developer. Guess what? That's changed. They got $20 million over the weekend, like from a VC. So now they're going to go after your talent. And that's happening quite a bit, right? Like I know at least 3 companies in the last 2 weeks who said that, oh my God, we never thought they were a threat. They have taken our top machine learning engineer, or they have taken my best analyst. And the other thing I must say that companies, tech companies, large tech companies are also going after recruiters. That may be a good news for some of the people who are listening into it, but recruiters are in demand. So that's why I always say, take care of your recruitment engine really well, because their offers are expanding. Because one thing that companies like Apple are doing is, like, when they go into a new location, they basically say that if I have to establish contact with 1,000 targeted resources, I must at least get 10 to 20 recruiters who already have that network. So you're kind of buying that network type of a concept, right? And today's recruiters are digitally savvy. They are actually digital marketers for the company's brand, and they have phenomenal influence that they can bring in. It is more the positioning that we are enabling them with right data, with deeper insights. Then they can communicate. We don't have to teach how recruiters should communicate. We just have to line up the right data for them, and they build their own story. Some of them build much better stories than what we could imagine. So that's what we are enabling. We are in the enabling business. So.
I do want to talk a little bit about competition with other companies you mentioned, but first, before we get there, could you mentioned the call center employee of today being the top sales executive of 5 to 10 years from now.
Yeah.
How do you hire the call center professional with that in mind? It's one thing to screen for technical skills, something totally different to screen for soft skills, both equally as difficult, just very different. Let's talk about soft skills in this case, which will be very important to the call center employee. How are you using, how can companies use AI to do that, and then to make sure that they retain that talent?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have somehow gotten into this classification that certain jobs are tactical, certain jobs are strategic. And I think that when you study the labor market, that you'll see that is actually not the right thing to do, because if you look at a call center agent, how this job has changed in the last 20 years, a lot of the tactical thing that they were doing is dramatically automated. Like there's no question about that. But still, you are, as I mentioned in my opening comment, 50% of the interactions that happen with customers is happening through phone today. Why is that? Because the problem statements are compounded and we have more products. Each company is putting out more products. Say, if you are a retail company, there is an app, there is some connect through a device like Alexa, right? You can order through your device system. So the problems on the customer connect points have also dramatically improved. So as a result, the support and payment, we have like multiple ways through which you can pay. Like, just 10 years back, there were only like 2 or 3 ways, like actually 2 ways, credit card or cash. Now you can, an unbelievable array of payments, right? So the complexities have improved, have increased. In this kind of a scenario, what we have to understand is what skills have call center agents evolved. They have evolved a phenomenal ability to almost become like a counseling type of an agent, right? Because they are dealing with very tough customers. Often, if it has come to them, it is a complex problem that automation could not solve easily. So, and at the same time, they are resolving it with a very high first call resolution. Imagine that, like you kind of get a different perspective about a call center agent, which we think it's an entry-level job, right? So you have now taken the most complex interaction and you are 99.99% of the time solving it in one call. And if not, you are basically doing an advocacy on it. You are doing grief, addressing the grief associated with the customer. So these are essential building blocks of what is called a powerful empathy agents. That's what they have become. They are really not call center agents. I would like to call them as empathy agents, because unless they have that, they cannot have the patience solved. So if a customer is coming to them in spite of all these automation channels, they must have deeper empathy to say, okay, they have a bigger problem. And now once you have shown that, you are now ready to, what is the number one requirement to be a top salesperson, right? You need to have a lot of empathy. what is the number one requirement for being a product manager? You have to have a lot of empathy. It's not about how cool your product looks. It's like, can they really use it and get something out of it? So some of the building blocks that today's call center agent is excelling at is just mind blowing. So what we are trying to do is look at, actually, not when I say we, Microsoft already is doing a lot of the transitions from a call center agent to a inside sales executive, to a field executive, to a digital ambassador, that type of a path. Now, the reason I say this is important is if you have a path like this defined, you can then go and engage with millennials, Gen Zs in a more powerful way. You start here, have fun as a call center executive for a couple of years, learn all these skills, pay attention to when you encounter a tough call, do not think that it is something that you would have to finish it. Look at it as a problem-solving opportunity, because you are going to be having $1 million conversation with closing deals. You're using these skills to take you there. And across this layer, the digital layer, that the tools that we'll be using, the AI tools that we are using will constantly give you feedback and you will refine it. So suddenly you have converted a boring job description into a very exciting, very powerful career, right? So that's kind of what we are trying to bring to the table. And when you do that, you start looking at potential. Actually, there is one study that caught my attention when there is a Rice University professor, cognitive professor by name Eric Dane. Dr. Dane, what he did was he basically called a bunch of accountants and said, I'm going to give you a test on new tax law changes and see how you're going to do it. And he organized this test in 2 clusters. One is cluster 1, inexperienced entry-level accountants versus cluster 2, very experienced accountants. Then after all the adjustment for noise and everything, the conclusion was the entry-level accountants did much better than the experienced accountants. The conclusion that that was made is there is sort of a cognitive entrenchment that experienced folks get, and whereas the entry-level folks are not. They are curious, they are understanding, and they are accelerating. It is that potential you want to tap into, not saying that I'm going to hire you for a tactical job. I'm actually going to hire you for your cognitive curiosity. And we're going to put you through a range of jobs and take you there. And who knows, with this pandemic, there could be a PhD in your frontline retail counter. You may want to tap into them early on, identify and tap into them, and expose them to the complex math problem you may want to solve. So I think the concept of viewing the workforce as a frontline, less critical work to, digital, highly critical work. I think workforce planning has evolved in this ideology of critical jobs. Like, I'm going to look at critical jobs and see how I'm going to. That concept has changed, but many of the workforce planning platforms have not changed to adapt that. So we are trying to bring in through our data set how to differentiate that. For example, today I've been telling this to everyone, like, unless your recruitment infrastructure is very strong, it is as important as your field sales force. I can do a quick business case, right? Basically, if you are 6 months delay in bringing the right engineer, you are 6 months delay in meeting your revenue targets. It's become like that, right? Because new products I'm sure you are very familiar with the concept of Agile. In Agile, the product launch cycles are rapid. Like, you get one iPhone version every year, or at least every 18 months because of that. Because that is also tied to the revenue growth, revenue plans, revenue acceleration that companies have. So a 3-4 month delay in bringing the right talent mean direct reduction in the bottom line. So we got to acknowledge all this and look through what is really critical jobs. And that's kind of where we try to help our customers.
You mentioned something I think is really interesting about, you said, we're not going to hire you for your, for example, abilities as a customer service executive. We're going to hire you for your potential, for your cognitive potential. I think especially to a young candidate pool, that kind of message is going to be really appealing, because lots of people are not going to want to know, oh, I'm going to start as a call center professional, and I know pretty much in 5 years, I'm going to be a manager in this department, and then I'll be a sales executive. People are just wanting far more the ability to move horizontally up, down in their careers than that. I think linear careers are just not as popular and not as possible even, right? They're just not as possible. So is that how you recommend your partners think about designing job descriptions? Is it just, hey, here are the requirements for a call center employee, or is it, here are the requirements that we want this call center employee to develop, and then we'll decide where to place them? How do you coach folks to think about creating really good strategic job descriptions that get
absolutely
talent?
That's a fantastic question. If it's okay with you, I'm actually going to use one slide to describe that.
Sure.
You are absolutely right on in the sense that you don't want to go to any worker with a passive view of what that job is. In many ways, especially entry-level jobs are preparatory grounds for doing greater things. So often you would have seen stories like Walgreens CEO really started, as a very entry level on the field type of a person, right? So there is a lot of potential. So how do we truly make people see that? And we do this type of analysis. Like, for example, today you have if you have a truck driver, which you think I think it's a cool job, but many people call it as a frontline tactical job. It's actually highly demand, not easy to, one threat that the truck driving faces is we have been telling that truck driving is getting automated. So the number of new people entering that profession is going down. But if we truly look at what skills they are gaining and what they can truly play role into. So it's actually truck driving is a supply chain job. You're managing goods across multiple points. So you are gaining a lot of knowledge about how to optimize routes, how to the transition paths. How do you really, when you are faced with a technical glitch, how do you problem solve? How do you handle very difficult weather conditions? How do you handle customer escalations? Because there are times you're not going to make it. How do you handle it? How do you bring integrity and trust? How do you build your own brand? Because at the end of the day, it's your brand that people are going to want to look at. If I give it to this person, he or she will, or they will deliver it, right? So that type of analysis is what we're trying to bring in. And then you start emerging this, a truck driver could be a global supply chain professional in about a period of 10 years, identifying new sources of where you are to source the goods from, and what makes it easy. How do you risk-free transport mechanisms? And they could also play very big role in developing algorithms for autonomous driving in the future whenever it comes. We know it's going to come. But you have kind of taken that tactical truck driving view and presented a completely different viewpoint, right? And that is what we are developing, this type of analysis, whether it is trucking, warehouse operations, customer service. I started my life as a call center, in the call center. So a lot of my examples where I started with coming from there, but it has changed dramatically, like where we are providing deeper, solutions to customers. So this is kind of what I would say that we need to start bringing in these type of data assets. And I know changing job description is not easy, but we have to paint the future through the job descriptions or through discussions. And some of the talented recruiters with whom I have worked with do understand that this type of dynamics, and they present the scenario to a potential hire. But what we are trying to do in a big data way is like, how do we gather this data at scale? How do we give it to all recruiters so they know what can be an essential, or hiring managers, what could be the response in a company that they are targeting to hire? So that is a very important component. And there's got to be some openness in accepting that certain aspects may be automated, but certain other tasks would come in. And one important theory that I would just say is for people who are interested a little deeper into like labor models and stuff like that, the MIT model, there is a model called Otter-Levy model, and that model was developed post the financial crisis. They said that for every task that is getting automated, there are some, you fill that with cognitive tasks. So it's not a scarcity mindset that is driving growth. It's actually like, we don't have to fear automation in any job. We basically will, if we plan correctly, our workforce will have the potential to expand their responsibilities and have a deeper impact to productivity and efficiency.
Keeping in mind the idea of the truck driver one day becoming the person who helps develop the better routing plan or algorithm or whatever, however it works, the operations level, at what point in that person's tenure does the upskilling begin? And how important is that to actually retaining them?
Fantastic question. I think this concept of looking at upskilling as a job role dependent is definitely something that we need to go a little deeper. But companies should go through a journey of what are the things that for me to transform into a digital enterprise, there are certain expertise that I need across all employees. So, today, every job has so many apps, so many platforms. So understanding data and how do you read data? What is data? Converting that data into a story, kind of storytelling. And also ability to understand the data and know when the data can be sometimes wrong, like when it is when a correlation is not causation, when all these the principles of statistics, I must say. So once you have that data awareness, kind of implemented, you then focus on you then focus on the cybersecurity aspect. How do we keep data secure, right? That's another common skill. How do we actually listen to customers? How do we be very empathetic? Because that's a common skill that we need in the digital age. And how do we actually track new systems and improve the digital habits in general, right? I could see that you are a writer and you have a phenomenal reading habit, but how do we bring that into our core workforce in this day and age of distractions? Like today, when you are working on an important paper, your Teams is going off, your chats are going, Slack is going on, like all these different systems. Like how do we actually develop focus in this, not be digitally distracted, right? All these things are essential competencies, building blocks of upskilling that we need to start straight away. It doesn't matter which job, who it is, from very entry-level job to senior job. Even executives need this type of training, awareness. All this we need to start. Now, depending upon as the experience level increases, different modules need to be brought in. And today, that's one great advantage, like through the massive online course providers and all that, we kind of have enormous flexibility where, during Thanksgiving event, I saw one of the course provider gave like like an AWS training for like $10. Like, I was like, wow, Thanksgiving sale is not just about buying stuff. You can actually buy courses at a cheaper rate now. So all these things are happening. If we are planful, we can actually say at 6 months, for example, in the truck driving concept, we can introduce supply chain concepts. We can introduce modeling concepts. We can introduce when do you know truck drivers have a lot of intuition? When do you know? How do you know that this trip is going to be good? Like based on data, and how do you articulate that in a data way? If you can do that, I can actually feed that to my machine learning team, and they can make it better, right? So we have to develop a plan for 2 to 3 year plan to take them to the next level. But the starting point for many of the traditional enterprises could be, hey, there are certain common competencies that we lack. How do we, in a 6-month time frame, how can we bridge that gap dramatically? Yeah, and interpret the data as a competency is going to impact everybody, right? So how do we get that? So that's kind of where I would start, and then with each job role specific, milestones driven, curriculums.
Any thoughtful reskilling program, whether it's really tight and concentrated on a specific person or department, or if it's company-wide, as you've been mentioning here, takes a lot of thoughtful planning.
Mm-hmm.
And it requires both recruiting, TA, HR, that people operations function, plus the C-suite to actually get on the same page and do that. What do you think are the major problems right now that are preventing those two organizations from getting on the same team when it comes to future workforce planning?
Yeah, as I said, there are 3-4 things that I've seen. We have done like literally 1,000 engagements around this topic. What I commonly see is at the C-suite level, actually at all levels, people want to do the right thing for enterprises, right? Everybody is approaching it through the different lens. There may be some difference of opinions as to how to get there, but everybody, the most part, want the enterprises to thrive, and that nobody comes to work to say that I don't want this company to do well, right? So everybody has their good thought. Where it gets tricky is not giving enough empowerment to recruiters, and I can't emphasize this enough, because you have to understand that this is as important as the sales organization. Very simplistically, I can say that, because the reason I say that is sales organization enjoy enormous amount of influence within the organization because they are bringing the dollars. But in my opinion, recruitment is also bringing in dollars in a different way, because if they don't bring in the right talent, you can't execute on anything that your sales team is promising. So first, level setting the organization. That's number one. Number two, providing the right data sets to the recruiters, or enabling them get the right data sets and the possibilities, and not just from a standpoint of, okay, I'm writing this complex Boolean and here is the profile. There are only 10 people. Including them more in the planning session, more in the upcoming technology solution. In one of the companies, I actually recommended that the recruiters or the key recruiters should actually listen in on strategic discussions that a CTO is having, right? Because the CTO is telling their technology workforce, that's good, but what good does that do? If suddenly you go to a recruiter and say, I want a quantum computing programmer, here is the requirement, like they would have to do so much to come up to speed on that. Like they would have to Wikipedia, what is quantum computing? And then the environment becomes like, okay, I do not know a lot about this, right? You don't want that. So can we've been talking about quantum computing for 2 years now, only now it's becoming real. So can we talk about all these with our recruiters more strategically? This is where the company is headed from a technology standpoint, digital standpoint. This is our frontline workers' belief. So pretty much in one board meeting, I said that recruiters should be your scientists. They are your talent scientists. That means you need to involve them, and they also can provide some thoughts about one thing that I always liked about recruiters, their gut check. I always value that. When they kind of say that this journey, this conversation is going somewhere, it's 9 out of 10 times it's right. If they say this person is not going to join us, 9 out of the 10 times they won't join. So they have that gut check. So you can kind of say, hey, these are the types of talent that we need to bring in. What do you think? Where are our strengths? Do we need to open a new location? Do we need to, ramp up on contingency talent, right? So all these questions we would have to make recruitment a bit more strategic. That is point number 2. Point number 3 is from a reskilling standpoint, the manager's mindset have to change. I always say that the biggest bottleneck in this journey, in this future of work journey, is the learners would learn, but like in any new learner, new achiever, they're going to require some time. Let's say you make a data analyst into a machine learning programmer, they're going to take a little time, and we have to give that time. The managers who manage them have to give that time, and not say that I don't want internally, transitioned employee from a learning perspective. I want someone from the outside. Guess what? Someone from outside may also be just now transitioning. They just have a better resume. At least in this case, everything about this candidate. So that is a big mind change that is becoming a bottleneck in many organizations. And number 4, the CEO needs to really set some metrics around reskilling. Like a simple metric could be what percentage of our employees are reskilled from in a given year. And some companies in places, actually our statistics show that the country that is reskilling the fastest, the reskilling more as a sheer percentage, is actually Norway. 36% of their enterprise talent is involved in some sort of reskilling initiative, self-taught or enterprise-driven. But when we look at the course certifications that they are getting across the globe, in the United States, we are trending at about 17 to 18% after we being very generous in giving the grade. I think if I'm very tough in evaluating, I would only say like 12 to 13% are making meaningful reskilling changes. And why is that? Like, we got to inquire deeply and see how we can enable that. The final thing is like there is nothing called front lines, digital line. Everything is digital these days. So there is nothing called less critical, non-critical jobs. How do we truly establish a digital enterprise, right? That means whether it is whether you are security staff, whether you are a cleaning staff, whether you are programming staff, all staff it's digitally influenced. So it's a digital staff, and it is the human force that's going to propel the next 10 years. So how do we kind of bring all this belief together and develop a very comprehensive strategy? And if you have this kind of alignment, if this framing, you probably read this book on framing, the same condition can be framed in 2 different ways, and you end up with 2 different results. For example, one quick example I'll give, and then I'll stop. Basically, the same COVID virus, right? New Zealand framed it as, okay, this is a SARS virus. I'm going to focus on treat this as a SARS virus. Then the UK said, I'm going to treat this as a flu. This is a flu virus. What happened by that framing was UK was more involved in containing. New Zealand was involved in kind of elimination. So because they framed it like that, and that framing is so important. So organizations would have to frame this as a continuous learning journey, as opposed to we have a labor shortage. If you have if you believe that you have a labor shortage, and if you frame it like that, you're going to throw money at whoever comes your way, and in many cases, you're not going to end up with the right talent. Even if you do, you're not going to end up with the talent that deeply care about your enterprise. But if you frame this as a learning opportunity, then you basically look at every single human in your enterprise and say, what else can this person can do? And that is truly where you are taking that enterprise to a next hiring potential. And I'm not saying anything new. This used to happen in the United States 20, 30 years ago. But what happened after the arrival of software in a big way, many people have said that this is not for me. I don't think I can do this, but that's not true. Like today, it's easier to learn something like a Python than even 2-3 years back, because they have put libraries, things have been made very, very easy. So I probably took a very long time to respond to that, because that was a very long, like kind of a loaded question, I would say.
Yeah, I asked a big one. It's totally fine.
So, but that's those are kind of my thoughts around that.
Yeah. Well, it's 2:45 and we do have some really good viewer questions. So I want to jump in on some of these. One that I think is particularly good: can a greater emphasis on hiring for potential help employers meet their diversity hiring goals?
The straight answer is yes. Actually, I'll give you very specific statistics on that. If you are looking at the technology stack, if you, let's say you are looking at United States as an example, and for example, you are looking at increasing African-American tech talent. If that is the problem statement, if you put all the strings that would meet a software developer criteria, an SDE criteria, for example, as it's commonly known in the United States, then the number of people who meet all the criteria that a recruiter would gain full points from their hiring manager if they hire, that talent pool is about 12,000 people, right? That's not a very big talent pool. Everybody is competing for that. But if you say, okay, I'm going to look at all nearby skills and enable them, people who are in the application development, systems development, engineers, systems engineers, and so on, that talent pool, guess where that number is? That number is 496,000 people, right? So this is the people who have working on the IT stack, nearby stack, in and around software development. Now, because of the advancements in tools, we can, on the convergence, what I spoke about, like today, an IT person is also exposed to cloud and all other technologies. So it is theoretically, it's a lot easier to get them into a software stack. It will still take time, but it will. So there, you are actually hiring for a potential, not because they highlighted specific keywords within the particular stack. So I absolutely believe this type of scenario exists everywhere. And as I said, if you hire a call center agent and put them through that and then make them inside sales, guess how determined they're going to be? They're the words, and if I managed about 300 call center agents in my life, the words that they choose, what comes out of the first reaction is so well done. Like, there is, they're trained so well not to offend people, they use the right words, bring the right words to bring the right reaction. So that's kind of what you need in sales. Like, so I totally believe that it will absolutely, and say for example, veteran talent that we have, right? They are invariably tuned to understand threats. So that's why many of them are super good in cybersecurity, like stack. You will have to teach them how to look for, what data alarms to look for, but they can be fantastic monitoring specialists. So that's almost true in every single scenario. So I absolutely believe that.
Are there ways employers can identify candidates with certain potential before interviewing them?
Yeah, I think we are, this may be just a pitch about Draup, but that's not my intention. But I think one thing you'd have to do is look at the holistic digital footprint of the candidate. And you can actually understand, let's say, inquire this from the lens of not just the job they have had, but also where they have held it. Like, for example, a call center agent who's coming from a company like a Zappos, for example, they're going to be extremely focused on on-time delivery and how they respond when that deviates. They're going to be focused on describing the product, making sure doing the things right for the customer. While that is true for all call centers, certain line of business, what the companies are known for, it depends on the organization itself. For example, Apple Care, not now, before, did not have that kind of reputation, right? So, but over time, they have fixed that. So you bring in a combinatory view of what the job is, what the companies that they are exposed to, whether they have worked in startups, this whole experience, this whole new concept called live-in experience, right? What have they lived through in their life as a whole? Like, I would say, like, if they have somehow gone to, there is one interesting study that we are doing. There are certain universities that are making in places like Atlanta, which is among the some of the poor neighborhoods, right? They are, in our opinion, they are making more bigger impact than a school like Harvard. If some are Harvard alumni, I apologize. I have huge respect for Harvard, but they are taking. Imagine a small targeted university sitting in Atlanta. They're taking kids from a median pay of $35,000, $36,000 a year, and when they graduate, putting them through an IT program, they are taking them to $120,000 type of a pay that they are able to get for the kids graduating the school. That is massive impact. Like in Harvard, many cases, you can't even make the money that you are studying the programs for. So, from a model economic perspective, that's a huge impact that we are making, and that's kind of the understanding that we need to do, whether the experience is wide and what type of incremental changes. We have metrics like learning velocity that we track. Like if someone has been in tester and gone into software development, that's a huge learning velocity than someone who has been in the same stack for a long time, right? So you have to interpret the data completely differently, interpret the data based on the types of companies, types of universities, and arrive at gauging the potential.
Next question, also a very good one. What are your techniques for anticipating the skills or potential that will be needed in the future?
Fantastic question. Thank you for that question. We track about the large venture capitalists across the globe. And we also have a database of about 1 million professors whom we have curated and studying what type of work they are doing. That's why we were one of the early platform providers to talk about quantum computing. And we are very big right now on distributed computing, very big on leveraging the psychology models behind call center agents to be very similar to a sales agent. And in many ways, our theory on scientific recruitment and why that is as important as sales, all that is a mix of studies that we are following, we are tracking. So we use these two data sets, and we also look at the formidable stacks that small companies are putting together. If you look at companies like Chewy.com, phenomenal tech stack, and they are excelling in delivering pet food, very precisely, to customers. But what they are building is a capability that is excelling in last mile delivery, supply chain, because even if it is not available in other channels, it's available in their channel. So they are excelling in all these sciences. So we monitor that. And that means they can disrupt anything that they target in the future, right? Let's say they want to deliver specialty food. They can use these technologies that they are building. So it's almost studying the competencies that as an organization they are building, right? And that's very, very important to understand what's going to come in the future, whether it is warehouse, whether it is, we spoke about truck driving, I showed the examples around that. It is a result of studying companies through completely different contexts, and that's what we do to arrive at that.
Probably time for one final question. There are a lot of good ones, so I apologize to anyone who asked one. We will not get to it. This one is about attraction and retention of talent. So the potential for career growth seems to be an important recruiting tool, especially now. I totally agree. I see that all the time. Are you observing that? And how would you advise employers to make the most of that desire among candidates?
I want to make sure I get the question correctly. It's the potential for career growth at the candidate level, or
yes, at the candidate level, potential for career growth. That seems to be an attracting factor right now.
Yeah.
Part one is, do you agree with that? I'm seeing your head nodding. Someone can say check. How should employers make the most of that enthusiasm?
Yeah, I think employers, yes, of course, potential for career advancement is a very attractive tool. Employers have a lopsided view of what is valuable and what is not valuable. And I say that I'm not complaining, I say that with request, right? We are trained to believe that certain things are more valuable than others, right? For example, in marketing, right now, everybody is focused on digital marketing, right? And there, the emphasis is more on, have you put Adobe Stack, have you put SEO, SEM, all these tools, right? But those are the easiest tools to learn. You can learn that in 3-4 months, like, because it's packaged tool. It is meant to, there is a huge amount of transformation that is happening so that you could do that in one click, 2 clicks, right? It is a little bit, it has an orientation issue. Like, you do have to gear yourselves to go near it and click and drag and drop and do all that. But it is actually easy to learn. So the emphasis should be on writing, communicating, understanding with empathy. Like, all that should be the core focus. But right now in the digital marketing space, we see that even in the profiles, right? There is just a flood of emphasizing these, putting more tools and things like that. So if we can understand that, if we can understand the importance of core skills, that's why we organize the JDs as what are the core skills, what are the soft competencies, and then what are the digital tools that you need on top of that. The skills are, digital tools can't be your core skills. So you got to have core skills, you got to have soft skills, you got to have digital skills. And this interaction, when companies understand that that's what produces the output, then you start believing in the potential, because today's digital marketer can be a very powerful social media influencer of tomorrow. And as a result, Disney actually created this thing called Disney Creative Labs just 2 months back. It's a very fantastic concept of, hey, I don't care whether you are talking about Disney or not, come and learn creative writing, come and learn. You may be an Instagram follower or Instagram influencer, but come and learn all these techniques here. It's free, you come and learn it here. What they are doing is a very, very powerful brand building. So in some ways, what they are saying is, if you have to become an influencer in a place like Instagram, you need to come and learn these competencies. And that, not just technology, right? Technology, they wouldn't be an Instagram influencer if they are not technology savvy. But what are the underlying building blocks of making you successful in that role? So that is a fantastic experience. Check out Disney Creative Labs when you can. But I'm not affiliated with them at all. But it's as a concept, we have to come up with things like that to bring people to their potentials.
Great. Vijay, thank you so much. You're a wealth of knowledge. I really appreciate your taking the time to talk with us today.
And thank you for, I know you are a great reader and a fantastic writer. So thank you for sparing the time and playing that role of asking. Actually, I feel like you have so much knowledge, the role should be reversed. So I should be asked question learning from you. But thank you for agreeing to do that in this meeting.
Thank you, Vijay. Steve, back to you.
Thank you both, Emily and Vijay. We can schedule a future webinar where Vijay is the interviewer and Emily can be the speaker.
Yes,
that will be fun. By the way, I love the part about giving your recruiter a hug. They've got quite a tough job these days. Thank you again to our sponsor, Draup, and to all of you for participating today. If you'd like to join us for more virtual events, you can head to our website fromday1.co and check out more of our upcoming webinars. I'll mention a couple here. On Thursday, October 14th, we'll be talking about empowering managers to lead a more flexible workforce. Tuesday, October 19th, HR trends in 2021, key takeaways for HR leaders. And Tuesday, October 26th, judging the relevance of skills credentials. So thanks, everyone. Stay well.